The soldiers stood in line, not expecting anything special. But then Barron Trump appeared, with a box in his hands and a mysterious smile. What he revealed to the veterans left them speechless. Some could not hold back tears. What was in that box? It exceeded all expectations and became the main topic of discussion across the country. Barron Trump, then merely a high school student, found himself assigned a project that seemed routine at first glance. The assignment required him to explore a significant chapter in American history, the Vietnam War. What began as a standard research project quickly turned into something far more consequential. In the dusty archives of his school library, Barron discovered a trove of military reports, personal testimonies, and old documents that provided a raw look into the conflict. Among these records, one letter immediately caught his attention. The letter was written by Jim Holloway, a former paratrooper who had served in the 173rd Airborne Division. Jim's straightforward and unembellished account detailed the loss of 3 close friends during a fierce jungle battle in April 1968. His words were devoid of any flourish, presenting a clear narrative of duty, sacrifice, and unresolved loss. The disappearance of his comrades was more than a historical footnote. It was a deep personal tragedy that had haunted Jim and his fellow veterans for decades. Barron was struck by the directness of the letter. Despite his youth, he recognized the gravity of Jim's request. It was not merely a call for academic inquiry, but an urgent appeal for answers. Jim's plain language and insistence on uncovering the truth resonated with Barron. This project, which had begun as a school assignment, was rapidly evolving into a mission with real-life implications. Over the next few weeks, Barron dedicated every spare moment to sifting through archived records. He methodically reviewed hundreds of pages filled with official reports, eyewitness accounts, and battlefield records. His research was systematic and precise. He avoided unnecessary detail and focused solely on gathering facts that could clarify the circumstances of the tragic April battle. The notes he compiled were clear and unambiguous, providing a structured timeline of events that built steadily as new information emerged. As Barron cross-referenced dates and locations mentioned in the documents, a complex picture of the conflict began to form. The data pointed to a chaotic episode during the war, marked by intense fighting and confusion on the ground. The missing soldiers were not merely lost in combat, they had become symbols of a broader mystery that had never been fully resolved. Each new fact raised additional questions. Who exactly were these soldiers? How had such a critical piece of history been left in ambiguity? And why had the official military records failed to provide clear answers? These questions fueled Barron's determination. The project no longer felt like an academic exercise. It was an investigation into a dark and unresolved chapter of history. Every new piece of evidence, no matter how small, reinforced his commitment to uncovering the truth. The clear, factual style of the documents matched Barron's own approach, straightforward, logical, and free of unnecessary emotion. He was not interested in dramatization. His goal was to document events as they happened, letting the facts speak for themselves. Barron's dedication soon attracted the attention of his teachers and peers. While some viewed the project as an overly ambitious endeavor, others were drawn in by the underlying mystery and the potential for groundbreaking discovery. The project's clear structure and relentless focus on factual evidence ensured that it remained compelling. Every document, every report, and every detail was essential in piecing together the events of that fateful day in April 1968. The letter from Jim Holloway became the linchpin of Barron's research. It was the catalyst that transformed a simple school assignment into a determined quest for truth. Jim's direct appeal for help was a reminder that the past was not a distant memory but an ongoing story that affected real lives. Barron realized that by uncovering the truth about the 3 missing soldiers, he might provide a measure of closure to a group of veterans who had carried their loss for far too long. Armed with his growing body of evidence, Barron began to outline his next steps. His notes were detailed and precise, listing key dates, names, and events without extraneous commentary. The investigation was unfolding with clarity and speed. Each new discovery led him closer to understanding the real circumstances behind the tragic battle. The sense of urgency was palpable, and the stakes were high. This was not just history, it was a living account of sacrifice and loss that demanded resolution. By the end of this phase of his research, Barron had transformed his initial project into a powerful investigation. He had compiled a comprehensive record of events that set the stage for the next steps in his journey. The data was clear, the timeline was consistent, and the narrative was unfolding in a way that promised greater revelations in the future. Barron had taken the first step in a process that was beginning to expose the hidden truths of the Vietnam War. Continuing from the initial breakthrough, Barron turned his full attention to the archives. He spent countless hours reviewing hundreds of pages of reports and dispatches related to Operation Tomahawk. This campaign, one of the most intense in the Vietnamese jungles, was marked by disorganized combat and conflicting reports. The chaotic nature of the operation made it difficult to extract clear facts from the overwhelming amount of data. As Barron sifted through the documents, he quickly realized that the volume and complexity of the information exceeded what one person could handle alone. He decided to seek assistance from those with first-hand experience. Barron reached out to Vietnam War veterans who had been involved in Operation Tomahawk, as well as to professional historians and organizations dedicated to investigating missing military personnel. This decision opened up a new phase in his investigation. Within a few weeks, Barron had established a small but dedicated team. Their first task was to consolidate the various sources of information and verify the details from the archived reports. During one of the early meetings, a veteran named Mark, who had served near the Saigon River, provided a clear account of the operation's intensity. The fighting was chaotic, and it was hard to know what was happening at any moment, Mark said plainly. His statement confirmed the disarray described in the documents and added credibility to the written reports. The team's collective efforts soon paid off. After several months of persistent work, they uncovered a crucial document. This document mentioned that 3 soldiers had attempted to break out from under enemy fire near an abandoned bridge close to the Saigon River. The report was concise and factual, providing specific details about the location and circumstances of the attempted escape. It described how, during a fierce exchange of fire, the soldiers made a desperate move to withdraw from the area. Although the account was brief, it contained the key information that linked the soldiers' fate to a specific geographical landmark. Barron immediately recognized the significance of this discovery. The mention of the abandoned bridge provided a clear point of reference that could be investigated further. With this new lead, the team shifted its focus from broad archival research to a more targeted investigation. Every piece of information related to the bridge was compiled and cross-checked with other reports and veteran testimonies. Throughout the investigation, Barron maintained a strict focus on factual evidence. The discussions within the team were direct, aimed solely at resolving inconsistencies and establishing a coherent timeline. No unnecessary details or emotional embellishments were allowed. The goal was clear: verify the facts and uncover the truth behind the incident near the bridge. Barron's dedication was evident in every step he took. He organized regular meetings to update the team on progress and to plan the next phase of the investigation. Each meeting revealed new questions, but also steadily narrowed down the search. The discovery of the document mentioning the 3 soldiers was a turning point. It provided a concrete detail that promised to bridge the gap between the chaotic reports and the personal stories of those involved. By the end of this phase, Barron and his team had moved from a scattered collection of reports to a focused investigation centered on the abandoned bridge near the Saigon River. This discovery marked a significant milestone in their research and set the stage for the next part of the investigation, promising further revelations and deeper insights into the operation's hidden events. Following the new lead, Barron arranged for an expedition to Vietnam. Due to family responsibilities and concerns for his safety, he was unable to join the team himself. Instead, he assembled a group that included Vietnam veterans, archaeologists, and researchers, all individuals with a background that could provide insight into the chaotic events of Operation Tomahawk. The team was briefed on the key document and the importance of locating the abandoned bridge near the Saigon River, where 3 soldiers had been documented attempting an escape under heavy fire. The expedition set off with clear objectives. Their first task was to reach the designated area and secure access to the site. Arriving at the outskirts of the jungle, the team organized themselves and established a temporary base camp. The environment was challenging. The dense vegetation, oppressive humidity, and unpredictable terrain were constant reminders of the difficulties inherent in conducting research in a conflict zone. Despite these obstacles, the team maintained focus on the mission. Veteran leader Captain Harris, who had served in the region, took charge of guiding the team. "We know this area well from our service days," he stated in a clear, concise manner. His familiarity with the local landscape proved invaluable as the team navigated through the undergrowth towards the suspected location. Along the way, the group encountered remnants of old military installations and scattered equipment, silent witnesses to the turbulent history of the area. Over the next several days, the team conducted a systematic survey of the area. Archaeologists carefully examined the ground near the abandoned bridge while researchers documented every finding. The approach was methodical and driven by the need to collect tangible evidence that could verify the details in the archived reports. Each team member was assigned specific tasks, ensuring that no stone was left unturned. One afternoon, while the archaeologists were meticulously scanning the riverbank, one of them, Dr. Nguyen, spotted a series of metal fragments partially buried in the soil. "These fragments resemble parts of military equipment," she commented. The discovery prompted a more focused excavation in that sector. The team worked efficiently, carefully recording the position of each fragment before extracting them for further analysis. These items were considered crucial, as they could potentially be linked to the equipment used by the soldiers during the operation. At the same time, another group from the team was exploring an area near a cluster of trees adjacent to the bridge. Here, they uncovered several personal items, dog tags, a wristwatch, and a small, worn piece of cloth. One of the researchers noted, "These tokens are likely from the soldiers. They are in a condition that suggests they have been exposed to the elements for decades." The items were bagged and tagged with precise location data, ensuring that they could be reassembled with the broader timeline of events. A particularly significant breakthrough occurred when the team discovered a set of old letters, partially preserved in a waterproof container buried near the river's edge. The letters were written in a straightforward style and contained details about the last moments of life for the missing soldiers. They mentioned positions on the battlefield, orders given under duress, and the urgency of escape attempts during heavy enemy fire. Although the letters were brief, they provided context that aligned closely with the archived reports Barron had studied back home. Their content underscored the human element of the operation and confirmed that the soldiers had indeed been caught in a desperate attempt to survive. Throughout the 2-week expedition, the team maintained a strict schedule of documentation and evidence preservation. Daily meetings were held at the base camp to review findings, update the timeline, and plan subsequent steps. These briefings were direct, focusing on how each new piece of evidence fit into the overall puzzle of Operation Tomahawk. No unnecessary commentary was included. The emphasis remained on factual accuracy and consistency. There were moments of tension as the team navigated the rugged terrain and encountered unexpected obstacles, such as deteriorated structures and unmarked clearings that hinted at undiscovered aspects of the battlefield. However, every challenge was met with a pragmatic approach. The team adjusted their plans accordingly, always prioritizing the integrity of the investigation over expedience. By the end of the expedition, the evidence collected was substantial. The fragments of equipment, personal tokens, and old letters together painted a clearer picture of the chaotic final moments experienced by the 3 soldiers. The findings provided critical corroboration of the archival documents and eyewitness accounts Barron had previously gathered. With the site thoroughly examined and the key evidence documented, the team prepared to compile their findings for further analysis back in the United States. The success of the expedition marked a significant milestone in the investigation. It validated the decision to focus on the abandoned bridge area and offered new insights into the sequence of events during that intense moment in Operation Tomahawk. The documented evidence now formed a solid basis for the next phase of the inquiry, promising further clarification of what had transpired during that fateful battle. The expedition concluded with the team's return, laden with evidence that would soon be analyzed and cross-referenced with archival data. As the team packed up their gear, it was clear that their work had only just begun. The evidence collected raised more questions about the full extent of the operation and the fate of the soldiers. Upon returning to the United States, the team handed over the most significant artifacts to specialized laboratories. Barron awaited the results with a focused determination, knowing that every detail could reshape the historical record. The artifacts, collected with precision during the expedition, included fragments of military equipment, personal tokens, and preserved letters. Each item was catalogued and sent for analysis under strict protocols. Within weeks, the laboratory results began to surface. DNA tests confirmed that the skeletal remains found among the debris belonged to 2 of the 3 missing soldiers. The confirmation was delivered through a concise report that detailed the chain of custody, the testing procedures, and the final results. Despite the clinical nature of the findings, the news carried a weight of both sorrow and relief. Families and comrades, who had long awaited closure, finally received definitive answers after decades of uncertainty. At a follow-up meeting, Barron reviewed the lab report with his team. "The results are clear," one of the forensic specialists stated in a matter-of-fact tone. "The remains match the DNA profiles provided by the families for 2 of the soldiers." The discussion was direct, with each team member focusing on the factual implications. The confirmation validated months of research and fieldwork, underscoring the importance of their systematic approach. The identification of the remains was a milestone for the families and fellow veterans who had struggled with unresolved loss. Local veteran groups and historical societies began to reach out, acknowledging the breakthrough as a step toward healing. Barron received emails and phone calls from relatives who expressed gratitude for the persistence that led to these results. Despite the straightforward nature of the report, the personal impact was significant. However, the investigation was far from complete. Notably, the 3rd soldier remained unaccounted for. The absence of any conclusive evidence regarding his fate posed a new challenge to the team. During one of the follow-up sessions, Barron discussed the issue with a veteran who had first-hand knowledge of the operation. "It's not uncommon for one case to remain unresolved in such chaotic circumstances," the veteran explained. His comment, while matter-of-fact, highlighted the ongoing mystery and the limitations of even the most thorough investigations. Barron acknowledged the setback with a practical mindset. He recorded the gap in the report and began to outline a new strategy to address the missing soldier's case. The partial success was still a significant achievement, and he saw it as a foundation on which to build further inquiries. Plans were made to review additional archival records and to reach out to other veterans who might have overlooked details related to the 3rd soldier's disappearance. At the same time, the team prepared to present their findings at a scheduled press conference. The presentation was carefully structured to provide clear, factual information without unnecessary dramatization. Barron emphasized that while 2 cases had been conclusively resolved, the investigation would continue until all questions were answered. The objective was not only to provide closure but also to ensure that the historical record accurately reflected the events of that fateful day. As the meeting concluded, Barron felt a renewed sense of purpose. The verified results confirmed that even partial progress could bring significant relief to those affected by the loss. With the families now holding concrete evidence, the path forward was clearer. Yet, the unresolved fate of the 3rd soldier underscored the need for continued investigation. Barron remained undeterred. He understood that every step taken was critical for those who had been searching for answers all their lives. The following week, Barron organized a meeting with the veterans. In a modest meeting hall, Jim Holloway and several of his comrades, men who had endured the battles and carried the weight of loss for decades, gathered to hear the results of an investigation that had spanned years. The atmosphere was understated yet charged with anticipation, as everyone understood that this was not just another reunion, but a step toward long-awaited closure. Barron arrived early to set up the room. He arranged chairs in a semicircle, ensuring that everyone could see and hear clearly. On a small table at the front lay a collection of carefully preserved artifacts, a faded military flag recovered during the expedition, personal items from the missing soldiers, and an assortment of documents that had verified their identities. Barron had spent months coordinating with forensic teams and historians to ensure that every piece of evidence was authenticated and respectfully presented. As the veterans began to arrive, murmurs of cautious optimism filled the room. Jim Holloway, whose letter had been the catalyst for the entire investigation, took his seat near the front. His presence was a quiet reminder of the personal losses that had driven the project. Others, old friends and comrades from battles long past, sat in silence, each lost in their own reflections of shared experiences and unhealed wounds. When the meeting officially began, Barron took a deep breath and addressed the group in a clear, measured tone. "Thank you all for being here," he said, making direct eye contact with each veteran. We have worked hard to piece together the events of that day, and I believe we have made significant progress in honoring your lost friends. His voice carried a blend of determination and respect, a tone that resonated with the seriousness of the matter. After a brief introduction of the findings, Barron called forward Jim Holloway. "Jim," he said simply, "I have something for you." He reached under the table and retrieved the faded military flag. With deliberate care, Barron handed the flag to Jim, who accepted it with a mixture of solemn pride and quiet relief. Alongside the flag, Barron presented several other items, personal effects that had once belonged to the missing soldiers, including a well-worn military dog tag that had been preserved during the expedition. The moment the artifacts were revealed, the room's atmosphere shifted noticeably. Veterans who had maintained a stoic exterior throughout the presentation began to show signs of emotion. Some struggled to keep their composure, while others openly wept as memories flooded back. Jim, holding the old dog tag, paused and looked around at the gathered faces. In a measured but heartfelt tone, he said, "We have waited for this our entire lives." His words, simple and direct, encapsulated the shared grief and relief of the group. There was no need for further commentary. Barron stood before them, quietly acknowledging the weight of the moment. After a few seconds of silence, he added, "This is the least I could do for you." His brief statement carried an understated promise that the effort to uncover the truth was not only about historical accuracy but also about healing the wounds that had long separated past from present. In the ensuing minutes, the room filled with subdued conversation. Veterans exchanged glances and words of gratitude, recalling times when hope seemed distant. Some spoke of the clarity brought by the confirmed identities, while others simply expressed relief that their comrades were finally being remembered properly. There was a shared understanding that while the pain of loss would never completely vanish, acknowledgement and truth could help mend the deepest of scars. Barron listened intently as small groups formed in the corners of the room. He noted that many veterans, who had been isolated by years of silence, were now reconnecting through shared experiences. One veteran, speaking quietly to another, remarked on how the presentation had given him a sense of closure he had never thought possible. Another expressed admiration for Barron's persistence, noting that the young man's dedication had brought a measure of justice to those who had long been forgotten. As the meeting drew to a close, Barron took a final moment to address the group. "Your sacrifices are not lost to time," he said. "We owe it to you to continue seeking the truth, to ensure that every voice from the past is heard." His words, though straightforward, carried a commitment to the ongoing work of historical preservation and accountability. In that modest hall, where generations converged, the intersection of loss and hope was evident. The artifacts, the confirmed identities, and the heartfelt responses of the veterans had woven together a narrative of remembrance and restitution. Barron's efforts had transformed what began as a simple school project into a meaningful quest that had touched many lives. This story now stands as a testament to the impact one determined individual can have. It shows that regardless of age, a single person's commitment to uncovering the truth can bridge the gap between past and present, healing wounds that have bled for decades.